you like to do the intro first?
Yeah, okay. So we're on the way to Port Orange, which is close to Daytona, and we're going to go get rangy so I can learn how to drive stick shift. Here she is. Pioneers used to drive these babies for days.
I'm just going to check the oil and get back on the road. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, wow! That's an old dog! Oh, that's an old dog!
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go.
For this series, I want to introduce each problem and then we'll try to fix it right after that instead of just listing all the problems at once. So the first problem that we're going to try to address today is this door. So as you can see, this door was replaced. Something happened to where this door got bent forward and bent into the fender here. So when this door was replaced, they used the original hinges, which I think are bent. So there's a couple problems. First one is it drops down as soon as you open it.
You know, when you've been doing this as long as I have, you can tell a truck just by the sound of its doors.
So you have to lift it up.
Solid. It's big, not too big. That has got to be a Ranger.
Second problem is it only opens this far, and that's because it's hitting this messed up fender right here. So we did go to the junkyard and get a fender. It's green, but it's not the same green. I'm hoping to put that on here. And I also got the other door hinges, and hopefully we can have this door open fully, close as it should without having to lift that up to close it. So that's going to be our first test. So I think step one is getting the fender off because I can't open the door enough to get to the hinges. So I think there's one bolt here, the series up here, one behind this light, one down here, and then the inner fender, and then maybe one on the bottom. I think they're mostly 8mm. Next I have to take off this corner light to get to one bolt that's back here. This is just held on by one 11mm nut here, and then the rest just pops out. One 8. But then this trim here, 3 Phillips holding it on. I don't think you have to, but I want to take off this tire to look at the brakes anyway. I think it'll be easier to get to everything. 3 of these are 18 and 3 of them are 19, which I don't like. I'll have to get some new lugs at some point. Pads have a little bit left on them, so I'll definitely like to change out rotors, pads, brake line at some point in the future, but today I'm worried about getting this fender off. Alright, now there's 3 clips. 1, 2, 3 down there. There's also a bolt down here, which is kind of hard to get to, but I'm thinking if we do that last, it should be okay. Well, I don't know how I'm going to get that back in without taking the bumper off, but that's a problem for future us. This is the last one right here. Try to show it to you. This is a better angle for it. But I'm probably going to be blocking your view. Okay, it's just an 11. There's another hidden, maybe 8mm under here. Yep, 8mm. So that was the hardest bolt to get out, actually. Directly behind here, so you have to have a small ratchet, and it bolts like this long for some reason. Now let's see if it comes off in here. There we go. All right, it's off. All right, now I'm going to take the door off so I can replace these hinges. Not too bad. I don't think they're supposed to do that. So we have a bolt here, and then I think there's 2 nuts on the inside part. This hinge is already different than the one that I got. This was the top one, and on the car we got it from, we just had another bolt there so I could take it off. So we have a big problem here. This is the top one, the top hinge here, which has a stud, which has a nut on the inside, which as far as I can tell, you can only access by removing the dash. The bottom one's like that also, but you can get to this part pretty easily. Now on the junkyard truck that we got these hinges from is a little bit newer, and this is the top one, and it just had 2 nuts to unscrew, so the top one comes off really easily. But on the 93s, I guess, they're both this style, which has a stud, but there's no way to get to the nut on the inside. I guess I'm gonna have to try to drill this out. Alright, this top one, I was able to get this bolt out, and then I had to cut that stud off. So now I was able to take this one off. This bottom one I should be able to take out as you're supposed to. Comes off pretty easily. It's designed well. Put a little bit of tape on that to hold it down so I can put this through the hole. Just leaving them loose now so I can move them around if I need to. Now I'm going to try to put the door back on. Well, it opens nicely. It closes. It doesn't drop down, but it needs to sit in further. It needs to sit in like this. Figured if I could move this back a little bit, that would help, but somebody had stripped out that bottom one. So I can't really move this at the time, but maybe in the future I can do something about that. For the time being, I'm going to say this is good enough. All right, let's see if this goes any smoother than the door. I think we're ready to start putting some bolts back in. Putting this trim back in now. Alright, the door and fender are on, and kind of disappointed in how it came out. I mean, the door does open all the way now, it does close.
What was that?
So functionally, it's a little bit better. If you look at some of these panel gaps, which I mean, this is from a much newer, this is from a 96, I think. Definitely have a big gap there. But the worst of it is this door. Look at that, you can see straight through. I don't know, I have to adjust the door some more, but for today, it opens all the way, closes. For today, good enough. Gonna have to come back to that at some point. All right, problem number 2 is that I don't think this has a thermostat in it, or it's stuck open, or the sender unit for the coolant gauge is bad. because it doesn't heat up at all. It does not get the operating temperature. It just stays on cold all the time. Even when it was down a gallon of coolant, it still did not even get the operating temperature. So either there's no thermostat, it's stuck open, or the sender's wrong. So I'm going to replace all of those things and see what the problem is. Also, this intake boot has this random bolt in it. I don't know why. So I have a new intake boot for it as well, and a new air filter. So we're going to start with those couple things and see how far we get. I'm going to start by removing this intake boot. Looks like this is falling apart a little bit. Alright, I'm going to pull off this radiator hose. It's a bit tight, broke my adapter. Well, it has a thermostat. Doesn't look like it's stuck open. Really need to clean up this surface here. Alright, it's discolored a little bit, but I still got most of the gasket material off of there. Now I'm going to try to clean up this water neck. And the bolts, the threads are kind of bad too. Alright, I'm going to replace both of these sensors now. I think this one's for the gauge, and I think this one wire one is for the ECU. I could have that completely backwards though. Okay, I have a 1-inch deep socket on here to get this out. That just broke apart. Just gonna put a little bit of thread sealer on this new one. Putting a little bit of dielectric grease on there. Both sensors are now putting in this brand new thermostat. It's 195 degrees. I also have a brand new gasket. Now I just need to put back on that water inlet. I cleaned it up and I thought about painting it, but I was like, this is a 30-year-old work truck. Why do I need to paint something like that? Nope, just kidding. I did paint it. I don't know why. Alright, last thing I do is put this hose back on. Now I'm just going to put on this new boot I got here. Some rope in here, a little piece of something, but that doesn't look too bad. A little bit of silicone grease. Alright, just going to top it off and hope it doesn't leak. Got a new PCV valve also. Alright, the last thing I'm going to do today, put this canister back on. This goes here, and this line was broken. It had a vacuum leak coming out of this part here. And I can't find this piece not broken, so I think I'm just going to replace it with a regular vacuum hose. This 5mm fits over it pretty well. Hopefully no leaks, and hopefully it heats up the operating temperature. Alright, our coolant gauge now reads in the normal section. So one of those things that we fixed did fix the problem. And we also now have hot air. So I'm thinking it was a thermostat problem because the coolant wouldn't get hot enough to give hot air in here, but now it does have hot air. With the two sensors being switched and the thermostat changed, we do now have a working gauge here. I think we have fixed that problem at least. Today on the Ranger, we're going to be putting in this engine flush, this seafoam. We're going to change the oil, change the filter. Then we're going to do a complete tune-up here with, got this ignition coil, cap, rotor, spark plugs, plug wires, coolant flush, and if we get through all that, we'll see if we can do a little bit more, but I'm going to start with all that. First thing I'm going to do is drain out the water that's in here now while it's still cool. So I'm going to go ahead and put it up on some jack stands, get a little bit more room under there. Alright, I got that coolant draining. Of course, I've managed to make a huge mess. I always do somehow, no matter how prepared I think I am. It never works out right. So I guess the next thing I'm going to do is try to get these spark plugs out. I'm going to be replacing all of the plugs, the wires, and the distributor cap, but I'm just going to kind of do it one at a time so I don't mix up any wires and have to deal with all that kind of stuff. This doesn't look good. Okay. We got some carbon buildup on the threads. And that gap looks way too big. So this gap should be 0.044, which is this one. And it's just way too big. It's closer to 0.06. This one right here is 0.06. And it still fits in there. So this was way out of spec for the gap. This one is also not in correct spec for the gap. That's what the gap's supposed to be, and this is what they were. A bigger gap on the right side. Alright, that's the driver's side plugs in. It's 100 degrees here in Florida. Humidity's all of it, so we're cooking a little bit. At this point, have the driver's side spark plugs in, have them all marked up, have it marked on the distributor cap and on the wires. I'm going to take off the ignition coil now and unplug it from the distributor cap, and then I'll go to the other side, place those plugs, and we'll start putting on the new wires, new cap, new rotor. Should be pretty much done from there. So 13, and I'm missing my 13 for some reason. I'm missing one. Oh, jeez. I guess Ford liked to put some standard size stuff on their car for some reason. I like these little 7/32. I'm going to do the passenger side here. Pop these boots off, label them, get the plugs out. Okay, now I'm just going to take out the whole distributor cap and I'll put the other wires on over there on the bench where I can kind of get a little bit better vision of it. Alright, next up I'm just going to get out the rest of the spark plugs on the passenger side. Carbon deposit on this one. I'm surprised it was running as good as it did with all this deposits going on, and also the rotor or the distributor cap has some buildup. Show you later. And the gaps are just so bad. It also looks like it might be cracked a little bit in that porcelain down there. This one looks the best so far. Still has some buildup. Gap looks a little bit better than the others. We got it. Yep, still looks a little bit big. Start with the hardest one first in the back. Okay, that one's done. That was fun. All the plugs are in. We are going to swap the ignition coil into this bracket here. I'm going to clean this up and paint it because I'm a little crazy. I wonder if I can use this clip off of this one for the new one. I almost put it right back on the same one. A little dielectric grease on there. Alright, that's about ready. Gonna put this back together now. This is ready to go back on now. Now I'm going to try and replicate this the best I can. Double check that firing order is correct. 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. Yep. Time to swap the rotor here. Just pop off and back on. Time for the new cap to go on. Alright, cap and rotor's on. Just need to plug all the wires back in. Put the ignition coil back on and we can test it out. Alright, before we tidy this up, just want to make sure it runs still. Then we can go for a little test drive. Guess I need to add some more coolant to it. Well, let's just see if it fires real quick. And if it does, then I'll put all the clips on the wires and then we can let it heat up for a test drive before we change the oil. Well, that's not good. I feel like it's this connection. Alright, today we are going to check the timing. We are going to put the door panel back on. We're going to change the oil and we might look into the AC a little bit. Let's see how it starts up from a cold start after swapping over the plugs, distributor, cap, rotor, wires yesterday. I might cycle the key twice because I think the fuel pump is going out. Alright, so I marked 10 degrees before top dead center, which is what this is, the specs call for this. So now we have to find the little connector down here, belt connector I think is what it's called. You have to unplug this, it's right by the battery here, by the ignition control module. Bring it in to show you what it looks like. So that's the connector right there. So we have to pull that little, it's called a jump bar, you gotta pull that out. Then we need to let the engine get up to operating temperature. Then we can check to see if it's at 10 degrees before top dead center. If it is, great. If it's not, then we have to loosen the distributor and rotate it a little bit. Not really gonna be able to see what I'm doing in here, but I'm just gonna use this little screwdriver to try to pry open the little clips on that connector so I can pull it out. This is what it looks like here. So once we have this pulled out, now the engine won't automatically advance the timing. So now we can start the truck back up again, let it get up to operating temperature. While it's idling, I'm going to replace the door panel. So we'll go ahead and move on with that next. Engine flush, it goes into the oil. You have to add try to clean out some stuff off. I have a much better funnel for this, but I can't find it. This one's not even gonna work. I have to find it. I know what you're thinking. That's still not the right one. And you are correct. I cannot find my other funnel. Start it back up. 15 minutes for the oil. It's just gonna go till we add more gas. Alright, timer went off, so I turned off the engine. Gonna pull it back up onto the ramps, change the oil, go from there. Starting to rain. Change the oil in the filter. This was the filter that was on the car. I gotta tell you, first off, what a dumb place for an oil filter. It's right above the starter, so like you can't really get to it without hitting the starter. And also, it was so tight on there. Whoever put this on before, I hate you. And so like when you go to loosen it, you have to have some kind of wrench, and if you touch the starter, then it sparks. So definitely take off the ground battery, which probably should anyway, but I don't usually do that. Definitely should, because if you jump that starter with a wrench down there or something, it lurches forward, it could definitely hurt you. So like I said, you should probably always do that anyway, but definitely disconnect the battery, because this oil filter was right above that starter. Yeah, so I replaced it with a Wix filter. I put oil back in it. Just gonna fire it up now. So I changed my mind, and I'm going to go with this tan door panel that came off of this door. One, because it is in a little bit better condition, but also because it's going to fit on this door better. Also, I couldn't put the door speaker in because I can't find the connection that comes out. So this is pretty easy to take off. If I do find it, go ahead and do that at another point. Should shut now. Also was able to get the door to shut properly. Shout out to Drew, thank you for that. This striker was too far in, so it wasn't latching all the way. So we said move this out a little bit, and now it does shut all the way. Definitely better. Something real quick I'm gonna do is just got these from the junkyard. So I'm just gonna throw those on down there, make it look a little better and a little bit more grip. Alright. Got those on there, if anything, just for a little bit more grip. It'd be nice to get that parking brake one also. I think the best thing to do is going to be get this bed liner off so we can soak those bolts for whenever we pull this bed off. So I'm gonna try to do that first. Looks like there's just a couple, like 4 Phillips here, and I think it clips on in the back. So yeah, I just had the 4 bolts holding it in, and then these parts clip over the back side, so you just have to get a long screwdriver in there to kind of prime over. We definitely have a little bit of buildup back here as far as dirt and leaf, but all 6 of them don't look too rusted, so that's really good news. Bolt heads look pretty good, not too rusted out. I'm going to go ahead and tap them with the hammer to try to break up any rust and soak them down. Okay, I'm not even taking the bed off today, but I just want to see how bad of a time we're going to have when we do. So see if these can break free at least. I don't know, but I will just let them soak. I'll try with a breaker bar just for a second. Moved. Just it moved a little bit. Also moved slightly. That one broke. That one definitely broke. Guess that's a sign to soak them in weight like the original plan was. This stuff works pretty good. Start by getting this clip off on this side. Clip is off, and out pointing the back of the truck. Say you can just pull these off. Got the new filter in there. Probably can't really tell. But yeah, these just pull off. Once you get that clip out, it just pulls off super easy. I thought I was going to have to use those fuel disconnect tools. But I still don't like how loose this is on here. I'm thinking about putting a clamp on there. If I can reach up in there, I might do that same also there. I got the transmission mount in. A couple tips: don't even try to get these out down here. I was able to get them to break free, but then I found out that you can just take out these two bolts right here, jack up the transmission high enough that you can undo these two that hold the mount to the transmission. You just take out the mount, slide the new one in. You don't have to touch any of these bolts. There's really only this one that holds it in on this side, and then there's two on the back here that are really hard to get to. So the hardest part was trying to break these free. If I had known what I know now, I could probably do this in literally probably 10 minutes. Just take these two off, jack the transmission up, undo this, slide it out, new one in, this one, line it up, drop the transmission back down into here, two bolts, really just these 4 bolts you have to worry about. So anyway, it's done now. Today I just want to do a really quick video and swap out this older shift knob for this newer one that I got here on eBay. So hopefully that'll make it look a little bit nicer, a little bit better feel in the hand here. So I'm going to go ahead and just loosen up the Allen that holds this on and put the new one on. This has a couple Allen set screws here, but if I just loosen one, it comes off pretty easily. This is splined for probably the original shift knob, but we do not have that. So I'm just going with this eBay one that I found. Came in with a bunch of these little adapters, but I think it'll work best without any of them actually. Go ahead and put that on. Put the little set screws in and make sure it's nice and centered here, and slowly start tightening down these set screws. Alright, it's pretty tight on there. Cover piece on. I would maybe like to try to get that to come up a little bit higher. See about doing something about that possibly, but for now, better than it was. Here's what it looks like after. We are going to go on a test drive and see if I can feel any difference now that the transmission mount has been replaced. But honestly, I don't expect there to be any difference. Also, I tightened up the steering box a little bit. Doesn't feel that much better. We still have this free play here. I think the box is just bad. So before the mount, there was a little bit of shakiness. I don't know if it's because the clutch is going bad or if it was just the transmission was shaking around. Feels a little bit better. Steering is still the same. So I definitely think that box is bad because I tightened it pretty good and it still has about the same amount of play in there. Definitely a little bit smoother on the shifts for sure. So I think it was worth changing out that transmission mount.